Hi everyone and welcome back to Chess for Charity. In this video, I'm going to show you a really tough mate in 2. See if you can find the answer here. It's white to move, and you have all of these pieces just attacking the black king, rook, bishop, and pawn. And your job is to find the one checkmate in 2. Keep in mind that this rook is currently hanging, and that you have 2 rooks, and you have 2 bishops that are ready for action. Can you find the mate in 2? Take a second, see if you can figure it out. Not checkmate in 3, not checkmate in 4, the only sequence that gives checkmate in 2. While you're thinking about that, let me quickly encourage you to subscribe if you have not yet already. Half of the income that I earn in this channel goes directly to charity, so it's greatly appreciated if you do that. Let's talk about this puzzle. So I like this one because I feel like when I first saw it, my first thought was just play, something like rook here, and if rook here, I just saw this mate. I just kind of saw that. But of course, it's not forced that way. You have to always wonder what happens if the opponent doesn't do what you're expecting them to do. So, does this move that I thought work? No, because after rook takes g7, you don't have to play rook takes. Instead, to avoid the mate in 1, you can play a h5. And you're still going to get mated, but it's not going to be checkmate in 1. It'll be checkmate in just a couple more. So you can play something like this, and then just walk them down the board. Either way, that should work just fine. Oops. Wrong bishop. Yeah, that'll do. So you want to find the mate in 2. So what is that mate in 2? So I was thinking about this thinking, I just need a waiting move. So I thought, what about a move like this? Really sneaky move, right? The idea was that if they take this, I can play bishop takes g7 mate. But again, you have to ask yourself, and that's why these are helpful. They're calculation exercises. If I do this, what is their best defense? Well, your rook is hanging. So they can play h takes the rook, and now this is not mate because they can run away. And again, you'll win this position, but it's not going to be mate in 1 or 2. So it can't be that. And I got to thinking, okay, I see that this, if I can get this bishop to move, then I can mate you on g8. So I thought, what if I make a move like, I don't know, just move the rook anywhere. And then if you take this, I go there. Seems sensible. But again, the bishop is not forced to capture my bishop, let alone move to begin with. Any other move would do here. Something like h6 is fine. This is not going to be mate on my next move. Okay. So what is the move then? Maybe I thought, okay, how about the king move? What if I played like a really quiet move, like king h2? Just move back. What happens then? Well, it's a cool idea, but now they can play bishop e5 check. And the reason why this is a cool move is because this throws a wrench in my checkmate in 2. I take this. That's my second move, and now they play rook g7, and it's true that I have mate, but it's not mate in 1. Okay, well, it's not mate in 1 from that other position, right? It's mate in 3. So then I got to thinking, what about instead of going on a light square or dark square, what if I went in a light square? So instead of going here, because of this same exact trick, what if I instead went king g4? Well, from g4, it's a great idea, but I'm accessible to checks now. This pawn can play h5 check, and whether I take it or not, it's going to cost me a move. And that will cost me the whole mate in 2 idea. Whatever they do next, even if they do this, this is not going to be mate because they can move here. It's not mate in 1. It's not going to be the mate in 2 that I'm looking for. So then I got to thinking more about the king move. It seems like I need to just freeze everything for a moment. And here is where I saw the insight. Look at this rook on a3. What is this rook doing? Well, this rook is in a nice place here. It's in a nice place. It can go to either a8, or if in some fantasy land I can get this king off of h3, it could sneak around to h3 and give check on this h-file. Okay, that's a hint. Do you see the move now? If you don't see it now, I'm going to share it. The move is king g2. Now, why is this the move? in some very cool way, this is a clearance move, allowing the rook to see this square h3. Now, this h takes g is now met with rook h3 mate. Isn't that super cool? So they can't get away with taking this anymore. And now all the other things I was saying are true right away. So like I said, if they play h takes, it's met with rook h3. What if they push the pawn? Well, this bishop is pinned because of my bishop on d4, meaning it's mate in 1 here. Do you see it? Rook h6 is a mate this bishop cannot capture. Isn't this cool? Because if the bishop could, it would be giving you check, but that's not how it works because it can't get its own check, right? Pretty cool. Okay, and I think the same applies, right? Same applies if I play h5. Instead of me capturing the pawn with mate, I'm just landing on the empty square with mate. Okay, so you can't move the pawn. Whether you take or push, you cannot move the pawn. What about the bishop? Well, remember, one of the things I mentioned earlier was that if I can get this bishop to move, I can take this rook with mate. And the reason why g2 is the right square is they can take here and there's no check. There's no move that disturbs this configuration of bishop and rook. Therefore, the one move, boom, rook takes g8 mate. So all these bishop moves are essentially the exact same. Right? Each of them are met with this rook g8 mate. Okay, so this pawn can't move. This rook can't move. Or sorry, this is a bishop. This bishop can't move. What about the rook? Well, if the rook goes anywhere, any of these squares, let's just keep drawing the arrows, what do I play? Right? Do I take this rook? Well, I could, but that's not the point. Instead, bishop takes g7 is more than enough. This bishop is cutting here, this bishop is here, and my bishop is covered. So really, this mate in 2, it all stems from the very quiet move king g2. That's the only move, king g2. That's the only move that produces mate in 2 in this position. There are a lot of other mates, but this is the only one. Clearance for h3, avoiding all the dark squares to avoid these checks, and most importantly, avoiding this light square for this check. Super nice puzzle. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comments. I really appreciate hearing all the feedback. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.